open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 25. Thank you. I'll get myself set up here. Matthew chapter 25. Now we've been before in this section of the gospel record of Matthew. I've preached on it several times. But tonight, I want to take a look at it from the eternal rewards perspective. Now we're going to begin with verse 14. I'm going to just read the verses first, and then I'll have something to say about it. For the kingdom, start with verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that received 1 went and digged in the earth, and he hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. It was time to make an account for what he gave them. And so he that received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained before them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast, that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strowed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchange, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable, literally useless servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now let's go back. We have been looking at what kind of works will be able to survive the fire. What kind of works will be able to survive at the judgment seat of Christ. Now, last time we looked at works done in faith. Works that pleases him, done in faith. In which then he rewards. And what pleases him, going back to Hebrews 11, is how it individually, diligently seeks Him to please Him. Tonight, we're going to look at works that survive the fire, but works that are done with faithfulness. First, we looked at works done in faith that pleases Him. And tonight, we're going to works done with faithfulness, which also will be able to survive the fire. Now, we read the scriptures, Matthew 25, verse 14 through 30. Here, we see the man traveling into a far country, distributing to his servants talents. Now, there's different explanations of what a talent is worth. What it would be worth today if you take the same value it was worth back then and apply it today. What it be worth? There was talents of gold, there was talents of silver. In this particular chapter, it's talking about money, my friends. There's rewards for talents for other things besides money. But let's not confuse, like so many preachers like to do, is bring all those other things and put the conversation that's being had here with His disciples front and center. And that's how you are responsible. The Lord gives you concerning money. In this case, this is a talent. Now, a talent's about 75 pounds. We're not told what type of talent this is. Some have guessed. And that's what it is a guess. But I took all the information I could find on these talents. And I broke it down to either a gold talent or a silver talent was used. And then I further broke it down to how much it was worth. Some believe, for instance, the gold talent was worth, in today's value, $5 million. Some believe a lot less. My opinion, and if this is not accurate, it's not going to affect your salvation if we don't get the exact number down right in this case. But I think I'm pretty close by all the research that I've done on that subject, on this subject. A talent if you compare it what it's worth today with what is worth back then, just listen to this closely. 1,400,000 roughly. And I'm probably too conservative in my number. I don't believe it was as high as 5 million. So I took the low end of the spectrum. One talent worth $1,400,000. That's a lot of money. Now, he gave one 5 talents. What would that be? Over $7 million? Now, if it was a silver talent, which it could possibly have been, comparing the value it was back then with the value it's worth today, it would be worth about $16,500 today. I'm compared with US dollars. So 5 talents would come out to be about $82,500. Still a lot of money. So the individual that had 5 talents had over either $7 million or $82,000, depending if it was gold and silver. The individual that had 2 talents given to him, that would make it over $2,800,000 if it's gold, or $33,000 if it's silver. And of course, if it's 1 talent, either $1,004,000 or $16,500. For a talent, which is about 75 pounds worth of exchange value. I thought that was interesting. But when we read these verses, we can see that these verses symbolize the money that God entrusts us with. There's no other way of looking at this than the man that's traveling to a far country is none other than Jesus Christ. And Jesus, when you look at this story, gave a different number of talents to each of the 3 servants. 1 5, 1 2, 1 1. Another thing we can observe when we're reading these passages is the Lord gave them according to their ability. According to their ability. That's why you see 1 with 5, 1 with 2, 1 with 1. I think that description in these verses is very important. It sets the tone. Because the Lord gave according to their ability what He believed that they could handle and be profitable for His purposes with what He gave them. You got that? Now, even though I'm preaching this in a generalized way, I want you to personalize this to you tonight. He gives each of us according to what He knows we can handle. Some people go around, if I only had more to give. What have you done with what you have? What He has already given you, what He has allowed for you to use for His purposes. He gives us the resources. I believe according to what He knows we can achieve with it. But we can achieve with the resources that's supplied by Him. Now, in addition, all 3 were held responsible for faithfully. Now, bold that in your memory banks. I'll repeat. All 3 were held responsible for faithfully. I'm emphasizing faithfully here. Using what He entrusted them with. You go through the story, which we already did. The first 2 gain on what the Lord gave them. 5 more in one case, 2 more talents in another. Now the master says the same thing to both of them. In verse 21 it reads, His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. This is the one for the 5. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. That enter thou into the joy of the Lord. And also in verse 23, the one that had two talents. Now one had more than the other. But when you read verse 23, they both were told the same thing. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. They both said the same thing. What does that mean? It's quite obvious, I think. They were both faithfully, bold that again, they were both faithfully using what Jesus gave them. Faithfulness again. One was not envious over another because one had more and one didn't have quite as much. We are only responsible for using, or let's just make it they, since we're referring to these individuals. They were only responsible for what they had not. Let me rephrase that. They were not responsible for what they didn't have, even though they might hope for more. They only were responsible for what they have. The person with the one talent wasn't faithful at all. And because of his unfaithfulness, we see here in the story, he was rebuked and barred from his what? Inheritance. The latter part of this story, he was shamed. He suffers shame and remorse because he was not faithful. It's a tragic end to one that is not faithful for what God has given them. His lack of faithfulness was exposed. And at that judgment seat of Christ, everything is going to be exposed. Well, you might say, well, that individual won't even make it to the judgment seat of Christ. Possibly. And that's a whole other subject matter. I've danced around it, but I never really got into what the outer darkness means. Future message some other time. Now, he wasn't measured because, the one with the one talent, because of others' faithfulness. No, that's not the measuring stick Christ used. He was measured by God as an individual who has a God-given ability to achieve what God gave him. He failed because he wasn't faithful. That means me and you, will be measured by what God has given us and how faithful we use what he has given, what he has allowed to flow through our hands. That's the same point as made by Paul. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Let's just start with verse 5. Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers by whom ye believed, even as the Lord gave to every man? I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So then, neither is he that planteth anything, neither he that watereth, but God that giveth the increase. Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one, and every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor, or trouble or toil. Every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. Verse 8 clearly says that we will be rewarded according to how faithfully We use what Christ gave us. And in Matthew 25, it's referring to some type of exchange with a monetary value. What has God given you? Maybe some of you are planters, and maybe some of you are waterers. But we all, according to these verses, we all are laborers together with God. And when you read verse 9, for we are laborers together with God, ye are God's husbandry. We are the cultivated field, ye are God's building. That's the most important building that God's concerned with. Not stuff made with brick and mortar or wood or whatever. But us. And how we're responding to what He's given to us in this case. You go to the same chapter, might as well just move over to chapter 4, verse 2. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. Of course, here it's referring to the mysteries of God, stewards of the mysteries of God. In a sense, it is connected with a monetary value exchange, because if you've been responsible to be a steward of the ministry of God, that means is getting it to someone else. That means you have to participate to get it into ears that never heard the rightly divided word of God delivered to them. No one's excused. And until we see Jesus face to face, let's be faithful, folks. Let's be faithful to what He has entrusted us with, which is precious. Far more precious. What that monetary value could produce is what is produced in an individual's lives. The monetary value is just a means to drive the engine to get, in our case, the word out to the world that delivers people from the bondage of non-truth that exists so predominantly in this world, especially the Christian world. Now, there are other elements of faithfulness, such as perseverance, steadfastness, endurance. There are plenty of scriptures that ties our rewards to our willingness to keep being faithful. I will look at those when I get back to the crowns, and I will, God willing. But the takeaway tonight is don't quit. Or don't get burned out when serving Him. I'm so tired of hearing people say, if only had more. I repeat, have you been faithful for what God has given you? And don't give me formulas. You know what I think about that. You've been faithful to formulas. And definitely don't develop the attitude that says, I just don't have any more to give. Well, if that happens, you're plugged into the wrong source of power, is the best way I can say it. Because it reveals to me that you're trying to do it all in your own strength. Stop doing it in your own strength. Now I'm 60, almost 61 years old. I have learned, and this applies across the board, not just money. If you're doing what God wants you to do, He will give you the strength to get it done, folks. And when you stop to think about it, why wouldn't He? Why wouldn't He? He does it because it brings Him glory and it brings Him joy. When we learn to tap into His strength and not our own. I don't preach a prosperity doctrine, but I've learned not to rule out anything that God can possibly do, especially when I get out of the way for Him to do something. All He requires of me is to be faithful to what He's given me. And when we could demonstrate that, see what He can do beyond that. The one that had 5, one had 2 and doubled it. The one that had 5, He gave. The one that had 1 and did nothing with it to him. Now that's for a future inheritance. I believe when we finally are living in a new earth with Christ the Lord on the throne. But it could also have implications into the here and now. Not part of some prosperity doctrine, but isn't He the one that takes care of all our needs? And if we could demonstrate to Him how faithful we are for what He has given us, you don't think He gets turned down by that? I think He possibly add an increase. I know it's true of my life. These type of rewards are there because He wants to deliver those rewards to the ones that are faithful. Rewards are for faithfulness in this case. The works that shall be rewarded are those done in faithfulness. Because, one, we know He exists, and because we know He exists, we want to please Him. And we diligently seek to please Him. And in that process, it demonstrates our faithfulness to Him and to His promises and to what He's given us as abilities and assets to do what pleases Him. Really very cohesive if you really think about it. The way the scriptures put it. Faithfulness, faith pleases Him. If you're pleasing Him, you're diligently seeking Him with a passion, obviously, to please Him, which will produce faithfulness, and it circles back around that faith pleases Him, so you keep on pleasing Him, you keep on being faithful, and so forth and so forth. A never-ending cycle to the day He takes us home or comes back for us. It brings Him glory and joy when we are faithful. And we are demonstrating faith in Him, that He exists, and in Him that He provides, and him that he has given us what he think we can do, what he expects us to do with what he's given us. And then if we are faithful to that, look out, friends, he just might increase you to the point where you can't even believe what's happening in your life in the here and now. But if it doesn't happen here, I can guarantee you it's promised in the hereafter, when he delivers eternal inheritance to all that are faithful. You got it? If you do, I want to hear from you. Play a song.